Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Uranium Energy. It is time for another update, and this stock has failed to hold the relevant levels of support that would have allowed direct extensions to higher prices within this wave C in green. And somehow, this could yet prove to be even more bullish than it would have been if we were to push directly higher. Why? Well, it is because at this point, this green interpretation has become significantly less likely. Sure, technically a wave B reset would still be a possibility. After all, we haven't yet broken the relevant levels of support for such a structure. At least not yet. But in this movement down, I am not convinced that we have a low in place. And we see a similar pattern. In some aspects, I can't go through all of it right now, but we see a similar pattern across many stocks, even across different sectors, yeah? Not only within this sector do we actually see such a potential wave C, where I have to prefer one more low from this time frame's perspective. Yeah, this would be a wave C, and we only have 3 waves down. We expect 5 waves down. Not only that, but also the move down is rather short. All combined, it leads to preferring lower prices. Interestingly, however, across many other stocks as well, we have a trade setup within a smaller time frame where if I actually zoom in here, I have potentially what could be tracked even as an impulse. I have to look for a potential trade setup here, and I do not know which of these outcomes will play out. Will we actually have a bottom within this wave B? Will we create here a 1-2 setup? Or will we push down by the resistance of this wave 4 in orange? I do not know. Nobody knows. But we can identify the relevant levels of resistance and the relevant levels of support to track for such a structure. But before we get into that, let me provide some context for you, because this structure, especially if the orange scenario follows through and provides to us one more low into the white support zone, could prove to be significantly more bullish than following through directly in this green interpretation that would take us, sure, to new highs, to over $20. But within this movement to the upside, we have been tracking this diagonal structure. This is not necessarily a bearish pattern. This would have the possibility to be a wave 1 to the upside. And trust me, while this may sound extremely bullish, there is also considerable risk here, but we can track this together, and I believe I can identify when we would have a confirmation and when we can actually even size up for this potential wave 3 that would be quite substantial. If you remember, we have been looking at targets over $100. But yeah, this could be a wave 1 to the upside, and we would have here a wave 2 area of support. Anyone can track this. But we also have to mind the risk, because while this is a 5-wave pattern up, this is not an initial 5-wave pattern. No. This could have been the end of a larger uptrend. This could have been the end of, let's say, a larger wave 1 in blue. In which case, we have to expect a retracement that would take us to at least $4.4, right? Something like that. A more substantial top is an inherent risk when we don't have an initial 5-wave move to the upside. That is the only case where we have clear levels of support, a clear setup. But in such a scenario, while we can track a potentially quite bullish pattern, we also have to mind the risk. So we have to identify within a smaller time frame potential confirmations that a bottom would be in. Now, typically, especially within a bullish structure, within the wave 2, a bottom can commonly form in the region of the smaller degree wave 4 bottom. This means within this wave 2 in white, we could easily expect to bottom in the region, let's say, between $10.8, right, the first level of support, down to $10, maybe even lower, $10.3. But what is clear is that we have significant structural support at these levels, and we are looking to build a 3-wave correction that could very well complete within this area, within this region. In fact, I might find it even a bit difficult for a wave 5 alone to reach those levels. But if we are to build on this chart a larger wave 3 to the upside, I would generally expect to bottom within the upper portion of the support zone, right? the 38.2% retracement, the 50% retracement, sometimes even the 61.8% retracement. Most commonly, if this is to build a wave 3, we wouldn't have an extremely deep retracement within this larger wave 2 correction. We still have to allow it, but within such a structure where we don't have an initial 5-way move to the upside, I have to be looking for confirmations to be able to not accumulate major risk, because if I am to consider the first level of support as a potential entry, I would have to look at maybe 50% in potential loss before I can look for a clear stop loss where this setup will most likely fail. And while even this can allow for a decent size and decent returns, especially if it is to form a wave 3, I cannot size up significantly in such an area. I will have to look within the smaller time frame and identify an initial 5-way move to the upside. And at this point, once again, we haven't gotten to the area of support. We don't have a complete pattern down, so I do have to prefer lower. In terms of resistance, I am watching in this orange interpretation, and I do prefer one more low once again, but I'm watching the levels of resistance between $12.6 up to $14.1. If we manage to get a sustained break above this level, we can maybe look for a reset within this wave B and then build a larger wave C. I do not know at this point, but until that happens, I have to actually prefer lower prices, at least from this time frame's perspective. Then I can actually go within a smaller time frame and look for a 1-2 setup, because as I was saying, this structure actually resembles very, very nicely an impulse. I have to look for a support zone for a potential wave 2 that doesn't have to follow through within a wave 3, doesn't even have to actually break the relevant levels of resistance for the wave 4 in orange, because it could be that this would be an A, B, C pattern within a zigzag that we would still get pushed back by the levels of resistance of this wave 4 in orange. And in reality, I have to say that if we form even such a structure, I would have to favor probably a larger wave C, something like a larger ending diagonal within the wave C in orange, something like a 1, 2, 3, and so on, 4 and a 5, where we would push into the deeper levels of support in white. But at this point, I do not know what will happen. Nobody knows what will happen. I can look for a trade setup, and even if this doesn't succeed in building a very strong and large wave 3 to the upside, I can still look for a larger A, B, C pattern within the larger orange wave C at the very least. So in terms of support, I'm watching the levels between $12.8 down to $12.1, and as long as the 78.6% retracement is still holding, we can prefer one more high within this structure. In this green wave 2 correction, I am looking primarily for a rather simple A, B, C structure where a bottom could be actually quite near. I am looking for this wave C to of course build a 5-wave pattern, and it seems likely to me at this point that it's not really complete, but it's within such a small time frame that we cannot have too much trust in this. I can guide you within a potential count here, something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but again, too small of a time frame, too early to tell. I would primarily expect to reach at least the 38.2% retracement at $12.8 before continuing to higher prices within what could be a wave 3 in green, within what could be an internal wave C in orange. And for now, we will stop here with the counts, but we can provide some time frame perspectives. So within this wave 2 in green, internally, a bottom could be formed on Monday, I believe. It doesn't need to have any large extensions, but to be clear, this green wave 2 correction could easily extend throughout the whole week, potentially even more than that. For the wave 4 in orange, I would actually like for a top to be in. If it has formed such a structure, if it is to build a wave C to complete the 5-wave pattern directly, I would like for a top to be in. The proportions are satisfying already, but if it is to form an internal wave C, I would like it to happen sooner rather than later. The wave 4 already has satisfactory proportions, and extending too much within this pattern could actually lead to a different pattern once again, where this would build within the larger wave C, a larger 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Not a problem for the white count, for the white wave 2. In fact, it might even make more sense to have an extended wave C because the ideal target of such a structure would be the 100% extension of the wave A, which sits more towards $9.8. Yeah, I don't necessarily expect to reach that if this is to form just a wave 5 in orange. But nonetheless, for the orange wave 4, I would like for a top to happen as soon as possible. If it extends too much, we will have to consider a slightly different path. Then for the white wave 2, well, this doesn't have too close of a time limit. I could easily see this pattern extend for many months, but again, it doesn't have to. I believe it has already done enough in terms of proportions, the only thing missing being to reach the area of support starting at $10.8, the 38.2% retracement. And for now, we will stop here. These are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. And if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.